Well, hello there. It is Denise Taylor here. I'm so excited to be checking in once again with you this week. 4 years ago, I stepped into full time entrepreneurship after a successful corporate career. Since then, I have spent a lot of time helping leaders navigate career transitions, launch businesses, and redefine success on their own terms. And lately, I have been thinking and reflecting on what these 4 years have taught me, not just about business, but about growth, visibility, leadership, and the courage required to become more fully myself. So if you're someone who's accomplished a lot, but still feels called to something more, I want you to know that you are in the right place. Now, last week, I shared one of the biggest lessons I've learned in 4 years of entrepreneurship. Your experience doesn't automatically translate into marketplace demand. And today I want to share the second lesson. And honestly, this one cost me some time because for a while I thought clarity was the goal. You hear so many things about getting clear and how it will help your progress, and it certainly does that. But I mistakenly thought that clarity was the goal. I thought that if I could clearly explain what I did, people would understand the value. But it turns out I was clear, but I wasn't connecting. You see, when I first started my business, I could explain everything. I could tell you about my background. I could tell you about my experience. I could tell you about my methodology, my framework, my services, my process, and all of it made sense, at least to me. Now, here's what the problem was. Making sense isn't the same thing as creating movement. Let me say that again. Making sense is not the same thing as creating movement. You see, people would listen, they would nod, they would tell me it sounded great, and then crickets, nothing. No urgency, no action, and no real traction. And that forced me to ask a very hard question. If people understand what I'm saying, why aren't they doing anything? Why aren't they responding? So the answer was surprisingly simple. People don't take action because they understand you. People take action because they recognize themselves. And that's a completely different thing. One is about information, but the other is about identification. And once I understood that, everything changed. You see, I stopped focusing on helping people understand my business, and I started focusing on helping people understand themselves. This is something I see all the time with accomplished professionals. They're incredibly knowledgeable, incredibly capable, incredibly experienced. But when they talk about what they do, they're speaking from their expertise and not from their audience's reality. They tell people, here's my process, here's my framework, here's my methodology. Meanwhile, the person listening is thinking, can you help me solve the thing that keeps me up at night? And those are two completely different conversations. Now, today I think about messaging completely differently. I don't start with what I do. I start with what my audience is experiencing. I don't start with my expertise. I start with their frustration. I start with their ambition. I start with their uncertainty, with their desire for something more, because connection happens when people feel seen. And when people feel seen, they are far more likely to believe that you can help them. You see, one of the lessons I have learned is that shaping my business going forward required me to be open to new thinking, new processes, and new ideas. And one of the reasons I'm so passionate about positioning now is because I see how many talented professionals are invisible. They're showing up, they're speaking, they're posting, and they're attempting to connect, but yet they are invisible. And it's not because they lack expertise, it's because they haven't learned how to communicate it in a way that creates recognition. That's why you'll continue to hear me talk about expertise, positioning, and marketplace demand, because those things are deeply connected. You see, demand doesn't start when people understand you. Demand starts when people see themselves in what you are saying. I've got 4 years in now, and here's what I know. Clear is good, but clear alone is not enough. The goal isn't to make sense. The goal is to create connection, because connection is what creates trust, and trust is what creates demand. Now, if you're an accomplished professional, a leader, or an aspiring entrepreneur, and you know that you are good at what you do, but your message isn't creating the traction you expected, I want to invite you to have a conversation with me. I open my calendar directly to you to book a call with me. If you go to www.callwithdenise.live, you will access my calendar there. You'll select a date and time that works best for your schedule. You'll answer a couple of questions so I can be prepared for you. And I will have a conversation with you to talk about translating your expertise into a positioning that creates demand. I'm looking forward to talking to you soon, and we'll connect again next time.